Today, we're here to visit Dr. David Seitz, who has a very similar practice to Dr. Ernest Brown. He's a house call doctor. He specializes in family medicine, hospice, and addiction.
Thanks for taking the time. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of masking, but right now, with where we are in the pandemic, things are looking better. And we take this opportunity to kind of sit down and take a deep breath and just have conversations, really check in. You know, we've known each other for almost 10 years. And as a family physician, we share a certain bond because of our experiences. And that's, you know, I'd really like to explore kind of like what made you become a physician? What made you decide on family medicine? What were the roots? And maybe even a little bit more about your background.
I actually originally was going to be a researcher. I had an interesting experience. I was working in immunology lab at NYU Hospital with a really great, personable mentor. You know, so for the first year I was there, I was working like in his lab. So then the next year, you know, he's like, listen, you want to come back? And I said, sure, I'd like to. He said, but I've got great news for you. There is a lab upstairs, and this lab isn't being used at all for the summer. I guess the researcher had moved out and they were going to wait for someone else to come in. He's like, you could be the only 19-year-old with like your full lab at NYU. And wow. I was like, wow, okay. Yeah. So I was so psyched about it. And interestingly enough, by the end of that summer, I was like talking to myself. I was like driving myself crazy, and I realized I needed to be around people. Like, I did enjoy the test tubes, but so at that point I made the switch, which really disappointed my mentor at University of Pennsylvania and the other mentor, but in a way they did me a favor because I think, you know, I learned something about myself, which is, you know, I think they're very special people. They can do some work and say, listen, this may not have relevance for 20 years, and that's okay with me, but I need to see a cause and effect. I need to see this patient is sick and now they're well. You know, to me, healthcare is such a personal thing, and yet, you know, what you may have the same condition in two different patients, but they want very different things done. And to me, it's my job to, no, I won't do something if I feel it's completely not right to do, but I have to respect the patient's wishes, right? And I remember this one patient, this woman, and she had a lot of GI symptoms, and she came into the hospital, and unfortunately, you know, for her, I diagnosed her with liver cancer. Before I had my visit with her, I don't want this to be a negative visit, so I called up Sloan Kettering. I had things all set up for her, right? You know, I had to look up the chemotherapy that they were going to use and how sick that was going to make her. And she said, doctor, you know, I just don't want to go through that. And you know, it was hard for me, but I had to respect that. I think, unfortunately, the way the economics underpinnings of the system, they try to have a one-size-fits-all. So everything goes this, to this, to this, to this.
It is very much,
And as a family doc, it's great to have that freedom to go with what the patient wants.
You know, as equally emotionally involved, and, you know, I have been invited to birthday parties and funerals alike. It gives me a unique perspective, which I feel blessed to have, that people have opened up their lives to me, and I get to experience it because it's made me much more aware of, you know, life itself. You know, to really dig in and, you know, enjoy what we've got, because we're only a third rock from the sun, screaming through a universe that, you know, we're all in this together.
Just a year ago, Central Park looked nothing like how it does now. Families participating in activities, friends getting together to chat, and others exercise as they leave their homes and search for a better future.
So right now I'm working at a drug treatment center, providing primary care to people with addiction problems, which is very challenging. You know, I did get COVID. I'm a COVID long hauler, so I've got a lot of symptoms. Walking up 6 flights of stairs to some of these old walk-ups is very hard for me. I'm not going to be able to do that forever, and frankly, when I can't do it anymore, I have nobody to hand this off to.
And then who's going to fill the void? Nobody. And that's why part of this is also to encourage, people to explore it. And those parties who have influence and can make a change and can stand up for, what would be providing for the health of our country, in my opinion. If our country is unhealthy, how can we be, a strong country? Right? And I would say, it goes into the fabric of even, labor here in the U.S. If I saw that this light bulb in the ceiling burned out, then I'd have to get maintenance to come and change the light bulb. Well, how many unions do you think represent that light bulb, where we as physicians, we have no representation? In fact, we're strictly forbidden to unionize. And there have been several attempts, but it's been quashed very quickly, and it's usually by those who are influencing how healthcare as a business sustains itself, not for the benefit of this country. So also as a family physician, we take anything, really. We are that hub, and unfortunately it also happens for some of our clients where, for one reason or another, maybe even as a result of bad health care, they find themselves in a very difficult situation, or a family finds a family member in a difficult situation where they become dependent, and what we would describe as addiction. And certainly in modern healthcare, we have medications which, unfortunately were purported to never have any addiction to it, and now 20 years later, we find out it's highly addictive. But as family physicians, we can also step in. And again, I think it's not only what are we doing for the clients, but how we're also involving the family and the health of the family as someone transitions through addiction.
I was teaching at the residency program at Beth Israel Hospital at the time, and I was in a faculty practice. I had a couple patients who were addicts, and often I'd be supervising residents, and frankly, as part of the medical school and residency curriculum, there was almost no teaching about this at all. In this country, we are not the pinnacle of knowledge when it comes to addiction. A lot of what I learned came from other countries, right?
Sure.
Germany, Australia particularly.
Yeah.
And mostly I was teaching myself and teaching the residents, And what interestingly happened is, because so many other physicians that were my colleagues were uncomfortable with addiction, because they had never learned about it. I think that's another thing in medicine. You tend to be comfortable with what you know, right?
Yeah.
So since they didn't know it, so all of a sudden these patients started getting referred to my practice, and all of a sudden,
it's called punting. Yeah, they punted to you.
But it was fine. It wasn't a bad thing, But it really meant I had to be on my game when it came to addiction.
Even for myself, as a family physician, always being on my toes, always hustling in a sense. I've had to step into the role for, I've been medical director for addiction treatment residential programs. I would say in some regards you're seeing the net result of poor health care, because I think early intervention probably, would have had a tremendous impact, or culturally a better appreciation for addiction, as opposed to just sweep it under the carpet and it's somebody else's problem. No, we're all in on this. So you look at other countries and how they approach it, But it is an eye-opener, and again, I feel honored that to have the opportunity to be able to experience that.
Well, I think it will. I think patients really like the idea of a doctor spending time with them and getting to know them.
Yeah.
And the current system doesn't encourage that.
No.
And I think we have wonderful, we certainly have a lot of resources in this country, technological and otherwise. I think if we harness them properly, we could really become, very powerful and provide the best health care in the world. But I think we also have to realize that right now, despite how much money we're spending on health care, most of the time we're not providing the best health care.
That's true. It's been great. And this is certainly, the show doesn't stop here. If you'll have us, we'll come back.
Oh, yeah.
And share a few more stories. We can show you more of kind of what we've discovered along our journey. Where we will be a year from now, 5 years from now, hard to say. But that's where Earnest Medicine is taking us, is really to get out there and experience life, what it means as physicians, but with other people along the way. We hope to really, have something that provides not just entertainment, but a solid core, something that strikes a chord with people, like a good musical chord.
And if you happen to find any of this interesting, or more importantly, if you want to collaborate, check out the link below so that you can send us your comments, any stories you may have, anything. We're happy to entertain it. And this is really about us going on a journey together.